And I'm going to pretend that Marshall is Lambo.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me, your favorite Aussie Lambo here. You guys like the Wardens? I do.
There you go. You got
He's-
it. You got it.
I'm doing him a great disservice.
We got our lad from
Spot on.
Queensland over here. Yeah, spot on.
It's
But,
the king from the Queensland.
Yeah, it's Queensland, isn't it? It's a spot on the Barbie.
I don't think they
Where's
actually say
Bobby?
that.
Spot on the Barbie. Go to the beach
Uh,
and see some jellyfish and, you know.
He's rolling over in his bed right now, fuming. He doesn't know why.
Sorry, Lambo.
The curse of the time zone strikes again.
Hello, everybody. We are doing another following the Dread Crumbs episode. I have lovely Lisa and Marshall joining us today to talk about the Veilguard finally properly. We spent a lot of time digesting our thoughts, playing this game. Some of us playing it twice, and we are now ready to just unload all of those thoughts. Unfortunately, Lambo is exhausted today and isn't able to join us, but we will be having a separate episode of him later down the line. Hope he is resting up. But yeah, Lisa, Marshall, thank you both so much for joining me today. Really is going to be full spoilers, general thoughts. We are very uncertain about the direction this is going to go. We've all talked about it in our own Discord. We've all had chats about the game, but this really is finally us talking about it properly. You are in for a treat as we really delve into all of our thoughts. But I guess general impressions, Lisa Marshall.
Oh my god! Wow.
It's so subconscious.
You know what? I won't blame you this time, but if it keeps up, I'm gonna have issues.
It just rolls off the tongue, you know.
The double L does roll off the tongue. You're right. I don't blame you there.
And there's two L's in your name.
You're right.
We'll start with you, Marshall. General thoughts of the Veilguard in a pinch, in a paragraph. What did you think?
Whew, oh boy. Well, I want to preface by saying I enjoyed my time with Dragon Age: The Veilguard. You know, having to wait a decade for the next game. I enjoyed the game I played. I enjoyed the characters. But I was left with a sensation of it could have been so much more, have things gone a different direction.
Yes.
And I'll get into more detail. I like the game. I enjoyed my time with the game.
Yep.
I will probably eventually, not right now, not instantly, eventually play it again. But again, I was left with a sensation of there could have been so much more.
Brilliant. That's very good. Pinched, you know, TLDR'd version of what you think. Lisa, same question.
Yeah, I actually agree. I love the game a lot, and I think its highs are very high.
Yeah.
It's obvious that there are some parts missing, and you can really feel that when you play the game. So I enjoyed it a lot, but I agree with Marshall. It could have been so much better.
Yeah. Same question to me. I really like the Veilguard. I actually love it. And on my first playthrough, you know, the amount of dopamine of experiencing Dragon Age 4 finally really got me through all of those high bits, screaming at my TV, the lore bits, the story, the conclusions. But now playing it on a second and third playthrough, I am starting to see the effects of it. As a game, you know, as a Dragon Age fan, very love loads of parts of this game. But then as a game, I am getting frustrated with having to do the same puzzles, blight, botches, the same
The
kind
pustules.
the same kind of rhythmic. Instead of it being blight bubbles, it's crystals, or it's the same rhythmical gameplay and formula gets very dry and annoying on a second or third playthrough. But overall, love it. As a hardcore Dragon Age fan, though, I can understand the critique as somebody who isn't obsessed with this world, and with a tiny cameo, it does come across. I can imagine as a bit like, okay, but so as a hardcore Dragon Age fan, it exceeded my expectations of what I thought we were going to, in terms of the fact that it's been in 10 years of development hell. It's
a miracle that this game exists,
and it's good as well. It's a miracle that it exists, and it's
in a good state too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like overall, that's what I mean. Like when I say exceed my expectations, because I wasn't expecting to be as good as it is. It did exceed.
Absolutely, that is a very good point.
For sure, I'm really happy with what we have. It's so obvious to me that there should have been more, and I feel like I don't want to jump ahead too fast. where my critique comes from is mostly the content we get with the companions and certain parts of the main story. And then with the companions, I guess that's also the romances, if you can
Yeah.
If you can call them
count that
that.
as one thing.
Yeah, well, we'll jump onto those in 2 seconds. What we'll do is we'll
Yeah,
just go
sure.
around the room and we'll then talk about our rooks. So I'll let Lisa kick us. Lisa, are you playing it for a second time, or have you just done one playthrough?
So I've done one playthrough, and I do really want to start a second one, but I've just been going back to my old playthrough and recording footage and stuff, and
Fair. So tell
going
us
back
about
for some of the dialogue.
tell us about your Rook. Who were they? Faction, romance, every bit of detail, and how you found Rook
Right.
as a
So Rook as a protagonist is really funny because all of my previous protagonists were pretty optimistic and real like goody two shoes.
Yeah.
And the Rook I had in my head was more of a cynical and practical person. Now the practical part is fine. You can do that, but cynical, it's almost impossible to do that with the Rook that we get in game. And it was a bit jarring for me going in with that mindset. All right, my Rook is just focused on doing whatever is easiest for them, and then they're not like super pessimistic but also not very positive, but it's you can't really do that with the dialogue options that you get. So I had to kind of change the Rook I had in mind. But after I got over that, I actually really enjoyed Rook as a character, and I got really attached to her. So my Rook is called Mila, which is funny because there's actually another character called Mila in the game.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the little girl in White's House.
Oh, the daughter, right.
Yeah. So that was funny. She was a Lord of Fortune.
I'm so
she was
sorry.
a maid. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. Me too.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah. And she romanced Lucanus.
Nice.
So yeah.
And how did you find that romance? Were you happy with it, or was there more to be desired?
So yeah, the romance is really, really good. I don't mind that it's a slow burn because it really fits his character, and I like slow burn romances. So I really like what we have. I just wish there were certain elements that were explored more.
Yeah.
Specifically, the relationship with Spite.
Yeah.
And how that affects not just the romance, but also the character as a whole. Like we don't really get to speak with Lucanus about Spite and how it affects him all that much. And I just wish that was explored a little bit more.
Yeah, even for me, like I didn't save Treviso, I saved Docktown. And then Lucanus just went down this rabbit hole of, I am going to get rid of Spite, this is going to happen. But there was kind of no ambiguity about it, no sense of agency in that. It was just he's set and predetermined on that path. But apparently he can go down another one where he what's to do? He seeks to stay with Spite. I don't know because I haven't seen it, but I've heard that there is that other option. But Spite for me was kind of just left in the shadows. Didn't really have any ulterior motive like we've seen in previous spirit possessed characters in the game. Flemeth, Justice. There's always been some conclusion to it. Whereas Lucanus, there really, really wasn't.
I was missing that as well.
Yeah.
Spite and Lucanus, if you do not save Treviso, Spite does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
But before the Treviso Menrath's choice, there's like moments where Spite is like talking where he takes over more often.
Yeah.
After that, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then Lucanus is like, I'm going to get rid of him. And I'm like, okay, cool. I haven't really seen him much recently. Yeah, but good for you. I'm glad you've made this decision. Sorry about your canals.
I would say it's better if you save Treviso, but he's still kind of in the background.
Okay, I'll at least see that. Yeah.
It's better, but there's also a whole sequence you get with Lucanus that you miss out on if you save Docktown.
Yeah, you can go to like the Fade and stuff, right?
It's not really the Fade. It's more you're inside his mind. Because Spite drags you into his mind. Yeah, it's a really good sequence. I really, really like it.
I'm looking
which
forward
is also
to seeing
the reason
that.
that I'm. Yeah, I mean it's the same with Docktown, right? There are some things you miss out on if you if you don't save Docktown.
Like the
because
flipping Archon choice, apparently. Is that true?
Yeah. You can choose between
the Archon if you save Treviso. That's insane. That's such a huge choice as well.
If you save Treviso, it's default Dorian.
Oh,
does
okay.
he does a more like undercover, like, we'll eliminate them from the source, cut the root out, blah blah blah. Who's more abrasive in his approach for handling the problems of Teventer, or Maevaris, who is more like, we will bring hope and
Yeah.
we will do everything above the board.
Yeah.
I think both of them would have been fine. Personally, Dorian's the GOAT. Honestly, he would have been fine. I chose Maevaris.
Yeah.
Personally.
I chose Maeve, but also because all the Magisterium gets killed anyway, so even if there were to be uproar about her...
Yeah,
like,
that's...
They all
What's
get
the point?
They get
What's the
killed.
point in choosing between Treviso and Minrathis? Minrathis gets fucked anyway.
It's also true. It's also true.
I guess-
So, yeah.
The biggest reason is missing out on Dorian and Maevaris, because after
That's
the
true.
initial meeting, they were just gone for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Until the very last moment in the finale, where you get to talk to them very briefly. But it came as a surprise to me that Dorian became Archon, because I was like, oh, so
Yeah, there's
okay.
no talks about that. I mean, they mentioned like the power grab and
Wow.
how they could potentially make a play for the throne.
Yeah.
If you don't. If Minrathis is saved, and it gets into more detail about that, and you get to talk to them more.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how like different things are going. But anyway, which way?
I'll need to see what happens when you do Treviso then. But how does Rook compare to the Inquisitor or to other characters for you then, Lisa?
That's a really tough question.
Yeah.
I am more attached to my Rook than I thought I would be. I'm not sure if I like them better than my Inquisitor, because I'm also really attached to my Inquisitor, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of the dialogue options, even though they're like sorted by tone, you've got like the positive one, the stoic one, and then I don't remember what the other
Purple
one is.
Hawk.
but
happy
The silly
one.
option.
Yeah.
the silly
Yeah.
one. I felt like all of them were kind of very optimistic and always very positive.
Yep.
There
Yeah.
wasn't enough of
There wasn't.
a difference.
No.
for
I
me,
went
so
for I went for the red option every chance I could.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Now on my second playthrough, I'm doing that.
Yeah, and even the red option isn't that aggressive. It's very
No.
nice still.
There's like one where you can
So-
tell Varric and Solas is an arsehole, and I feel like that's the nastiest you can be. And it's like, we could slap him
It's-
in Inquisition.
We can get into this later, but it definitely felt like dumbed down and like clean hands sort of situation with the dialogue. But
So I really like Rook, but the dialogues are just. I wish
Yeah.
there was more variation between the
agree.
tones.
That's a fair critique. I agree. So Marshall, tell us about your Rook. Are you playing the game again, or have you just done it once? So tell us about your Rook and faction, class, everything, and Holy Romance.
yeah, so I have done one playthrough. I'll probably do another playthrough later. I stopped. I was in the middle of playing Metaphor when Dragon
Nice.
Age dropped, and so I was like, okay, put this to the side, binge all of Dragon Age. That was good. Back to Metaphor. So I'll probably come back to Dragon Age later, probably sometime next year. But my Rook was a rogue Shadow Dragon. His name was Cyrus Merkar, I think is how you pronounce it, the Shadow Dragon's surname.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Elkhart? Yeah.
Merkar, something like that. Really fun. I liked the character I made for him. I tried to be a more no nonsense type of character.
Yeah.
Like he's here to get shit done. He's on the job. But again, like with the dialogue, it's hard to kind of be like that. You end up being a more positive. I just kind of end up caving. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna be positive. He's a goody two shoes. Here we go again, I guess.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed. I like the Shadow Dragons, even though I will get into. I wish there was more that they did.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
definitely more than the likes of the Lords of Fortune. I'm sorry, Lisa. But yeah, I like the Shadow Dragons a lot. I like being a Shadow Dragon, even if I didn't get to do the one thing that the Shadow Dragons are known for.
Slavery.
Uh,
Sorry, anti-slavery, not that.
yeah, Jesus. Yeah, I like Rook as a character. I like, similar to Lisa, I grew more attached to him than I thought I would. Because obviously, I love the Inquisitor. My Inquisitor is the best. I love him.
Hell yeah.
It's hard to really beat the Inquisitor in my eye.
Yeah.
I don't think Rook did, but Rook did come really close. I think part of that has to do with the voice actor. The what is his name, Jack? You've met the great
Alex
man.
Jordan, the British masculine.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does a fantastic job as
What a
Rook.
lad. He's
especially
a beautiful
in
person
those
as well.
especially in those more intense emotional dialogue options, which is why I chose Red, like the angry option a lot, because that's
Yeah?
when he got to really like flex his talent.
Hell
And
yeah.
his acting skills just came out perfectly. Like whenever he was upset emotionally or like anything, like, I felt it felt very lifelike, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to hand it to like that. I haven't heard the other voice actors and actresses,
Right.
so I can't speak on their skill. I'm sure they're fantastic. They were chosen to be the lead
For sure.
characters in the
Oh, yeah.
Dragon Age game.
Oh yeah.
But what I got with Jordan was amazing, and
Hell
it
yeah.
really helped cement Rook as a character for me.
Oh good.
Also, I mentioned my Rook was a Harding romancer.
Oh he.
Oh.
I've been waiting 10 years for this. All right.
Yeah. Hard
Which
for
it would have been
Harding.
great if I actually got to romance for my first playthrough, thanks to somebody here in this voice chat's actions.
Lisa, what did you do, Lisa?
Nah, don't you pin this on her, you son of a bitch. You know what you did. We'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But
Man,
how did you find that
um,
romance, at least from what you wanted of 10 years of being hard in Hightown?
Okay, don't call it that. It was cute. I really like how cute and it was.
Yeah.
I feel like there weren't that many romance scenes. I might have to go back and play the other Dragon Age games, but I feel like
Yeah.
Veilguard didn't have too many romance.
Yeah. So
In comparison. I mean, the thing is, like, there are great ideas for romance scenes. You know, like Harding mentioned going on a trip to Ferelden for a little camping
Oh,
trip.
stop
I'm
it.
like, she's like,
Yeah.
I've got a camping trip planned for you. I'm like, oh, do you now? Never happens.
But she does it with Emmerich.
Yeah.
They literally does it with Emmerich in
goes
my
with
game.
Emmerich, yeah.
She goes with Emmerich, but not me. I can't believe this crusty old man.
While
Oi!
the Darkspawn are
No, I love Emmerich. I
literally-
love Emmerich.
While the Darkspawn are literally destroying the place.
Yeah, literally,
okay,
literally.
well-
How did she do that? Yeah.
Listen, all right.
Uh,
I'm sure it's fine.
She's
Make
a
like a
scout.
stone. She'll make a stone wall around the encampment. We'll
Yeah.
be okay. What about you, Jackathy? What was?
We'll do Lambo. I've got Lambo's notes.
Oh, yeah,
here.
Lambo,
So
yeah,
Lambo's
yeah.
with us in spirit. So Lambo, I'll try and do an Australian accent.
Oh, please,
So-
please, God.
Oh, please don't.
Lambo was a warden cunary. My
Don't do
Rook
this.
was a warden cunary here. No, I won't. He romanced Harding as well, like Marshall, and he
Fellow
loved.
intellectual.
But yeah, they loved the amount of dialogue your character gets based on their origin. I agree to that. What origin was he? Oh, he was a warden, of course.
So yeah, he gets all the special treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spectrum of this
Yeah.
unique dialogue is like Lambo at the front, me in the middle, and then Lisa at the piss bottom.
He doesn't mention anything particularly about his Rook. He'd say that some characters in the game did feel underutilized, like Dorian, the Inquisitor, Isabella, while other characters who should have been in the game were completely absent, like Francesca, Fenris, and Fenrir. I agree. Nothing else he hated about his Rook, though, so we'll leave those thoughts as we run through this, but...
I'm sure he loved it. I hope he loved it, man.
So so for me, I did a self-insert as my first Rook, and that was Jackdaw, the Morn Watcher Warrior. For just a few thoughts, because I've talked about it in a separate video, really enjoyed him as a self-insert. I definitely, though, just for my own grounded way of speaking, prefer the Inquisitor as a self-insert. My Trevelyan is just a better way for me to roleplay. The grounded dialogue in that game, the more nuanced emotion. It's just my own personal preference. I really enjoyed Rook as a character, and I'm enjoying Rook a lot more as an original character. But as a self-insert, it didn't hit me as much because while I enjoy the upbeatness, I can be quirky, I can be cheesy. I'm not that overly optimistic and positive, whereas the Inquisitor's more grounded, dulcet tones suited me more as a person. Again, though, that's me creating a self-insert, so I realised few things I didn't like was the warrior class initially. I went for a full-on two-handed build as a slayer and just didn't enjoy it. And then I found myself enjoying weapon and shield a lot more, and then went down a Reaper specialization. Really enjoyed that. It did suit my character more as a Morn Watcher, but I was disappointed with the lack of just two-handed gameplay, combat mechanics. Also, not having any two-handed swords was a bummer. I was trying to go for a death metal gothic vibe. You know, Morn Watch, Slayer. You could imagine him like with a massive guitar being gothic like that,
Yeah.
but it just didn't. I didn't have that, and I didn't feel like I could really spec into a build because of just the entire dynamics of all the enemies. You could do that in previous Dragon Age games where you could spec into being, a fire mage or what have you. Whereas in the Veilguard, I felt like I couldn't really spec into a particular element that would actually devastate armor or
Yes.
barrier or
Right.
those or health. Every enemy was basically the same regardless of what they looked like. It was dwindling down their armor and dwindling down their health. I didn't feel like the elements really had that much effect, or I could go for a build. Now I need to try that. I would love to try a champion warrior full on going for that fire effect to take down Dax, but even then you're going to be contending with other enemies, so it's like really there isn't any point. And that's where I think in previous games when you did have the ability to control your companions or you had their abilities, that's where it helped a lot more. I did find that disappointing from playing as a warrior. However, I am saying, as I do say that, this warrior gameplay is better than any other Dragon Age game. So,
Oh yeah.
Oh, for
while
sure.
I'm critiquing the warrior a lot, it's been the best it has in any other. For my Inquisitor, my Trevelyan, I think about him, really, I do love him a lot more than my self-insert Rook. However, on my second playthrough, I'm playing as Tivril, the Veil Jumper Mage, and I love that. She is Bryony Corrigan voice acted, so I did Alex for my self-insert Rook. He was fantastic, British, as Marshall said. He had this gruffness to him, but then he did let the emotion shine in pivotal points, and I loved that. But I am in love with Bryony Corrigan's voice, and I think this comes down to also having an original character too, not just playing as, okay, I'm going to be Jack, so I'm going to have a sense of justice, I'm going to have kind of an optimistic kind of goofball personality, and I'm going to, romance Nev and go for that kind of that aspect. Being an original character with Tivril, who I'm currently playing, I'm just at Weishaupt right now, I love the northern accent from Bryony Corrigan. She's from Cullercoats, which is just outside of Newcastle, right in the north of England.
I've been there.
Yes, you have. Yeah, and just to hear that representation in a Dragon Age game for me is amazing. Newcastle, the north of England as a whole, it just has this representation of working class. A different aspect of the United Kingdom. We all, I understand it. BioWare has a very Northern American audience. When you think of England, you think of London. You think of the South. You think of royalty and finery and drinking tea. But there's another side to England that people don't understand and don't see, and that's what I loved about the representation of this character. She is more gruff. She uses a bit of slang terms when she says certain words. You get that aspect, and it just reminded me of myself while creating an original character. So I really like that, because while in a weird dynamic, it allowed my character, who is a Veil Jumper, I could give her maybe a bit of a Ferelden background, or I could make it so she's from other areas, which doesn't overtly make sense, because and it makes sense for the main characters, but the accent in this game is a conversation in itself. But we have Balara, who's Dalish but is American, and same for Davrin. So there was that weird dynamic with different accents. But I did enjoy it for our main character, Bryony Corrigan, and I am enjoying my own original character a lot more than my self-insert. So for me, self-insert Inquisitor all the way. But when I do have my canonized, I am in love with Tivril, my northern Veil Jumper elf, who is romancing Balara. It's very much an opposites attract relationship. She's very gruff, always choosing the stoic options. I'm liking the game a lot more choosing those options, and more so with Bryony Corrigan's voice, because she does have that gruffness. So I would say if you are missing that gruff, you do want to play more of a stoic, blunt character, try Bryony Corrigan's voice, go for that, which is the British feminine, and try that one out, because there is more of that. You feel more like you're a smuggler, you are a spy, but you're still a bit gruff. You've got that edge to you. It's definitely the darkest tone you can get with this game, because I do feel like all the other voices are Happy Fairy, which is fine. You want that ambiguity. So yeah, Romance Nev, really like that romance. I wish it was more spicier. I wish there was more nudity. I've only seen nudity in the Lucanus romance, and I hope that's not across the board, because,
No, there's no nudity in the Harding romance.
There is not really any nudity in the Lucanus romance either. It's just your character topless.
Well, that's the thing. With Nev, it's very spicy. She ice blasts a door closed. It's like, okay, Dragon Age in the past has been sexy. Look at Dorian's romance scene. Look at Sarah's romance scene. Cassandra's romance scene. Iron Bull's romance scene. It has been sexy, and I do wish that Veilguard had carried that sexiness through. So I was disappointed.
Yeah, it feels very PG-13.
It's too safe.
It feels very... Yeah, it's way too safe. I forget, did they say somewhere that this was like, oh, this is the spiciest romances ever? I don't know if they said that.
No, they said, if I remember correctly, they said all the romances had like a different kind of flavor to for
Yeah.
lack of a better term.
That's true. That's true. At
Because
least.
Emmerich's was supposed to be more sensual, and then
Yeah.
there were others that were pretty spicy, and others were more tame.
There was like Tash would definitely
yeah.
be the spiciest, whereas Emmerich would be
I'd
more
say so too.
romantic, sensual. I just would have liked it to be a little bit more spicy, with it being Dragon Age and coming off of the back of Inquisition. I'm not even thinking about Origins' romance scenes, like, damn! But I did love
Look at those polygons go.
Yeah.
Alistair just looking at the campsite in the background as well. It's like, don't look over here, Alistair.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed Nev's character though. And this is another thing that we can talk about later on, but it's just, I think with the characters, besparring Emmerich, a lot of the characters are just telling you what they do, not who they are. Even as much as I love Nev, it just comes down to, by the way, I'm a private investigator. By the way, I'm a private investigator. By the way, I like Doctor. And it reminded me a little bit, and maybe it's a harsh critique, we can talk about it, of just Andromeda, where it's like, Cora Harper, did you know that I'm an Asari Huntress? Yeah, but did you know that I'm an Asari Huntress? Yeah, but did you know that I'm an Asari Huntress?
I think you're really on the mark there. And on Twitter recently, I saw the scene where Cassandra is caught reading Varric's books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no like character depth like that in Veilguard, in my opinion, for the companions.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is one of the issues that I have with this game. There is so much set up. The foundation is there, the ideas are there, and you can clearly see where it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
But the depth isn't there. It's not explored further. For example, at the start of the game, after you just met him, you go to the memorial gardens with Emmerich, and he tells you about his fear of death. I'm like, yes, that's the kind of shit I want to see in a game like this. Yeah, he tells you about it, and like the way he describes his fear is so raw
genuine
and so genuine and so relatable, and that's the only time it really comes up. The other time is during like the finale of his personal quest where you fight the giant skeleton.
Yeah.
And you kind of see it because he is scared to free the lantern, or to free the spirits in the lantern because they might kill him. But that's the only thing we see where he comes back, and it's not brought up again. And it's like, why didn't you explore that further? Because that's such an interesting and relatable topic, and it's not really there.
100%.
And I felt that with a lot of the other characters as well.
Yeah, and I really do like this cast of characters. The potential is there for them to be the best in throughout Dragon Age, but they are hindered by a lot of the dialogue and the tone and the less less development of their character.
Here's a huge criticism I have, which I guess could segue into a lot of discussion. I think one of the biggest issues of this game is that its two biggest inspirations as a Dragon Age game are Mass Effect 2 and 3. And I think that hinders it. Yeah. Mass Effect 2, its Mass Effect 2 inspiration isn't that bad. You know, it's your companions have their own quest, you complete their quest, their survivability goes up in the final mission of the game.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But its Mass Effect 3 inspiration, I feel, is very detrimental.
Right.
For a number of reasons. And why I say Mass Effect 3 inspiration, I mean, end of the world, gather all of these factions together to combat the Great Threat. Well, that's great in Mass Effect 3 when you've had 3 games to learn about these factions, learn about who these people are. In Dragon Age, in Veilguard, I don't know who the fuck the Shadow Dragons are. I don't know who the Lords of Fortune are. I don't know who the Veil Jumpers are. I only know the Crows and the Wardens.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to like really deeply care about their fate when I don't even know what they do. If you like, and again, this is as a Shadow Dragon, this is my biggest criticism. If you did not read any supplemental material, which I also think was not the best thing to have the supplemental material like Deventor Knights be the foundation for this game, because not everyone read it. If you did not read Deventor Knights or any of the short stories, and you asked, what do the Shadow Dragons do? Someone would probably answer, oh, they're like an anti-Venatori faction in Minrathous.
Yeah.
Which is all they do in that game. There's no, like, the only mention of, like, fighting slavery is, oh yeah, in your backstory, you went against orders and took down the slave ring, even though there might have been repercussions, blah, blah, blah. Like, great. Never brought up again. You don't see any slaves ever again. You don't free slaves because that's what the Shadow Dragons normally do, but they have been hijacked by the narrative of this end of the world style event, so you don't get to learn factions get hijacked by the main plot, and so you don't learn what they are about. Like, everyone knows what the Crows and the Wardens are about, and even like the Wardens, I feel like get the best treatment in the game because their big issue is fighting Darkspawn, and that's
Yeah.
what they do anyway.
Yeah.
But the Shadow Dragons, the Lords of Fortune, who get nothing.
Besides an arena. Don't forget the arena.
Oh my god, jeez. You don't get to learn what they are about before they are swept away by the big overarching issues. And
Yeah.
like the Veil Jumpers, okay, they do what? They explore Arlathan. Well, Arlathan's shit full of demons now. We have to fight them.
Yeah.
The Lords of Fortune are like, yeah, we treasure hunt. They never do any treasure hunting in the game. You don't do that. You fight
There's one
on
quest,
Tom.
I think. 1 or 2 quests.
Yeah, there's 2. Yeah.
Where you hunt for treasure. No, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think, and this is my biggest thing, I think this should have been 2 games. I don't think you can have a Mass Effect 3 style end of the world scenario where you have to unite everybody under one banner to combat the greater threat if you have not established who you're supposed to care about. If this was done in the, like, hearing about what the Inquisitor was doing,
Yeah.
I would have been more invested in that because I know about Orlais, I know about Ferelden, I know
Yeah,
about Orzammar, I know about
yeah.
all these people. I don't know anyone in Northern Thedas.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
they should have had at least a game to establish these people. I think this game should have been focused on finding and stopping Solus.
Well, you know
Going-
what? Originally it was. I
Yep,
don't know if
it
you
sure
read the art
was.
book. Yeah, there's a lot of Joplin art in the art book.
Joplin,
and,
my beloved.
a lot of most of Joplin was actually about stopping Solus and working against him. So
I feel
that
like-
was the original plan.
That would have been better for a game to establish what Northern Thedas was about.
Absolutely. Especially when we had 3 games in Ferelden. I mean, I know Hawk isn't in Ferelden
Yeah.
for long, but you know what I mean? We established Ferelden so much. And then now it's like, okay, now it's the end. With Northern Thedas.
Yeah,
I feel it's I like that the Shadow Dragons, the Grey Wardens, and the Crows are very involved in the main story.
Yeah.
But I do agree, you don't really learn that much about them. I think we learn more about the Crows from Zevran in Origins
Yeah.
than we do from Lucas in
Yeah, because
Veilguard.
all the Crows do in this game is fight the Antom and their occupation of the city. Like,
You
they
don't get
don't
the
do Crow.
idea that they're assassins at all. They're a fearful guild. You don't get that idea from them at all. If you didn't play Dragon Age
Well,
4 or read
and-
the books, you'd be like, wait, they're a military operation, right? And you're like, no, they're covering as a military operation because they don't have an official army. But no, they're actually a guild of assassins. Like, you don't get that idea.
Just like you
Yeah.
don't get the idea. Like, I'm very sorry, Jack. I still don't know what the difference between the Mornwatch and the Mortalitassi are because it's not really explained well.
I think, yeah.
Oh.
And I think the
Fair. Well,
Mortalitassi are the mages.
The Mortalitassi,
What's the order
they're the
altogether?
Death Mages, and then the Mornwatch is a branch. It's like a subgroup of
Well,
that.
the thing is,
Okay.
the Mornwatch was said to be a fraternity in Twin Knights as well, which had me of assume it was a different order of just men doing something. But then it's like, oh, it's not a fraternity anymore. So, like, what, you're going against Winter Knights? I think one of the biggest cons for me was how much Tvinter has been built up to purely dark fantasy, you know, slavery, blood magic, the class system of it all. So many things we've heard, them being the ultimate evil, you know, the stories of the Magic origins, this place of pinnacle magic. And then we get there, and while I really, really liked Docktown and seeing parts of Minrathis, like all of that lore, that history, that deep-rooted dark fantasy, just atmosphere of Tevinter, just it wasn't really captured at all. There, as we've talked about before, there was no mention of slavery, really, barring a few codices. Is there one quest to do with slavery? I can't remember.
No, there's zero
No.
quests to do with slavery. As a Shadow Dragon Rook, there are 0 quests to do with slavery, and I think that's so stupid.
Well, it's just it's been built around that. Its entire culture, you know, is built on slavery. The class system of Soparati versus an Altus. Even in Tevinter Knights, we have Vadis, who's an Altus thief character, and she's dating an elf, and it's all scrutiny because it's her father's like a former her father's former like slave or partner. And it's like, well, where's that aspect in the actual story of Tevinter?
Something definitely happened with the writing team between Tevinter Knights and the release of Veilguard, because it feels like all the nuance of the world and all of like the different layers of society were stripped away down to their binaries,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel like immersive. Oh, we're finally into Venture. We can see the towering streets, all that stuff. Oh boy, I can't wait to get headfirst into like Teventer magisterium politics. No.
Literally,
Fuck.
literally, something that I really wanted was, and I get it, it's a lot, but magisterium politics, having Rook needs to address the magisters in the magisterium.
I
and then
wanted
being
to
like,
dismantle
no.
slavery.
Yeah, a slave rebellion. These are things that were all hinted at based on things that Bioware told us in the previous games, but we knew this game going into it was about the authorities don't want to do anything, so Rook is going against the authorities, and we get that with the first warden, we get that with Antiva's nobles, the monarchy not caring about the invasion or giving it over, and we get that in some aspects of it, but not as much, and I really wanted to see the leaders of these nations visit them, demand their help, and then for them to then reject us, and then we would find our way with these factions. But instead, it very much is, okay, go to the crows because we need a crow, or I've heard of the demon of Rantum, go there. I wanted to at least speak to these nations, get an understanding from them, and then see why we need these factions, because otherwise it was just help the
Why do
crows.
we need the Lords of Fortune? What do they contribute to anything?
Yeah.
For gold and glory, guys.
Shut up.
And it turns out that we just paid Tash to join us anyway. We paid Isabella to hire a Lord of Fortune or a Dragon Hunter.
Poor Isabella. Oh, my girl. Oh, man.
it's
They did their so dirty this game.
It's just I felt like we needed more reasons behind it. I get why we need a Grey Warden, and I loved seeing Antoine and Evka. They were brilliant.
Oh,
that made
I
sense.
love them so much.
We need a Monster Hunter
they're
because we're
great.
going against the God of Monsters. That was good, but and we got the first Warden there, which was great. That's the dynamic that I really enjoyed. But I wanted that for all factions.
Warden is one of the best characters in this game. I stand by that.
Yeah,
He is a fantastically written character. He does get a little Rook walking up to the First Warden and say, "Hey man, the Blight's changing. Things are different." I understand the First Warden being like, no, don't waste my time. I know what I'm doing. You're not a warden. You're not an expert."
Yeah.
It's when his other wardens are like, "Hey boss, this shit's getting whack."
Yeah.
He's like, no, there's no delusion." That's when he gets a little stupid because like Rook being some random guy telling the First Warden how to do his job. I understand the First Warden pushing back on that, which is why it makes him compelling.
Yeah.
But then he gets like a little silly when he completely ignores all the red flags and it becomes kind of ridiculous at that point.
Yeah.
I do like the choice to punch him though. That was really fun.
Apparently there's a Gloom Howler ending to do with him that I need to do if you don't punch him.
If you don't punch him, you get to maybe, I think, save the Gloom Howler? I don't know. I punched him. I don't know. But what?
I punched him as well, but she dies either way. But if you don't punch him, he helps you find Revos's feather. And then you can show that to Isaiah, the Gloom Howler.
Yeah.
And then she breaks down and she just kind of curls up. And then I think it's a fade to black. And she did die, but the game doesn't make that clear from what I've heard.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I'll do that next.
Yeah, same. I punched him as well, so I didn't see that. But I heard,
We all
I heard
punched
other
him.
people talking about
I mean, it was satisfying. It was really cool.
Yeah.
All right. The Siege of Wysop is probably one of the best missions in that game.
Fantastic
It's so
mission.
good. It's great.
It was really good. But I do think, coming back to like the tone.
Yeah, the tone. It's my biggest cons are the what's the word? The directional dialogue of not the why or the how or the substance and the context, and that goes from a character's personality to just playing the game a second time. And do you know we're going after Elganan and Gillinan? Did you know about Elganan and Gillinan?
The Elven Gods, the Elven Gods.
You know they're Elven Gods, right? You know Solas who's trapped in your head? You know Solas who's trapped in your head who said that one thing? You know Solas is the god of lies and he's trapped in your head? And you know you have the fate of Solas in your head? That, I don't like that. Whereas you look at Inquisition, people, maybe casual players, don't like Cole because he's so ominous and what the hell is he talking about? When you dive into Cole's dialogue, none of it is directional, but all of it is hinting at and foreshadowing and telling you what's going on without directly telling you. And it's like, where did that dialogue go? Where did the ambiguity of those things, what happened?
The subtlety. This game is a lot of tell and not enough show.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
A lot of people shit on Inquisition because of the exposition dumps early on, but they pale in comparison to the amount of shit that
this
Veilguard
game's
does.
constant. I was even just playing Harding's mission there, and thing is, when I first played this game, my first playthrough, high on dopamine, we're playing Dragon Age. Finally, we've all waited 10 years for this. We are playing this game. I am playing a Dragon Age protagonist. This is insane. And I really love it. I love it. But then you're playing it a second time, and then it's like, okay. Because I just defeated a bunch of blight botchers, and Harding's like, we can go check that area out again now. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at codices, I'm not bothered. Yeah, but there's that area that's now unlocked. Rook, that area is now... And I'm like, Harding, I know. I'm going over here, I'm exploring the map, I don't need you to tell me where to go. That hand-holding I don't like, and that's a side effect of Andromeda 2. I like to be able to go over here, look at codices, find things, enjoy, soak up the world. Without being told by a character, you can go over there now, you can do that, don't forget that. And even if you're waiting to finish a puzzle or you're taking your time, they'll just tell you how to do it. I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I want...
That's a very annoying thing in like a lot of games recently.
Yeah.
Like I remember back when I was playing God of War Ragnarok, and they would keep telling me how to do the puzzles. Like, I know how to do the puzzles. Give me a moment.
Yeah.
Like,
and that should be an option, I think, in accessibility. If you want to be guided through dialogue, go for it. But generally, as a rule of thumb, like that should be an option of no, I don't want to be handheld.
Yeah, and that's just the puzzles. But there were 2 moments for me where this issue was really prominent, really obvious, and that was after the Solos murals, where the characters talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And
wow, this thing that we just saw, like,
yeah. So this happened, and then this, and yeah, we just literally saw we heard what happened. We heard the characters speak, and I don't need my companions telling me what I just witnessed.
What you want is their reaction to it. Wow, we just found out the ancient elves were spirits. What does that mean about me? What does it mean about all of us?
Yeah,
And there was a bit of that, but it wasn't enough. And the only character who was compelling in those, in my opinion, was Emmerich, who would provide a bit of lore or a bit of his opinion on it. This changes everything. The Maker one was really good because Harding is like, well, what about the Maker? And then Davrin's like, well, you did it. What doesn't, And you can actually have an opinion on that, and that is actually about the characters and how they feel and how they react to it. But a lot of it was just telling you what you already saw.
Yeah.
It's like I can make a video and do that myself. That's what I did in Inquisition when you told me this. I don't need somebody to explain it to me. I like doing that myself. I like the ambiguity, and that's the thing about this game. Every other Dragon Age game, every choice was ambiguous. You didn't know if you had done the right thing or not. Like the controversial option of, do you side with the mages or the Templars? Things like that. There's no controversy and there's no ambiguity in the Veilguard. It is all spelled out for you, and I don't like that because we all love Dragon Age. Like Solas, love him or hate him, it's that ambiguity of why do you like him, and that's all complex. Whereas I do feel like the Veilguard, there isn't. Besides choosing Emmerich's ending, it didn't feel like there was that much ambiguity in what you can.
So, yeah, there was another moment, and it's after the Weissat mission where everything goes wrong, and the characters are like, we're too focused on our own things. We need to deal with our own issues.
I hate that so much. I'm gonna be real. It's so stupid.
I was like, why I feel like the characters aren't talking to each other. I feel like they're talking to me, the player.
Yeah.
And instead, why don't you show me characters losing focus during their personal quest or other quests? Why don't you show me this in banter or like ambient dialogue or when I just talk to the characters? Why don't, instead of literally saying, oh, I'm too focused on my own issue, just let my Rook have a conversation with this character where they're tired or I don't know, where they're stressed out.
Yeah. It reminds
me of hints instead of spelling it out for me.
Well, the opposite is Inquisition, when literally Varric and Cassandra have a proper after he reveals Hawk, and that is the side option of, do you want to resolve the two? But that is those two arguing it out. They're not going to, I am so misfocused about this mission right now because of that revelation. That happens independently, and you choose to then give Cassandra a book by talking to Varric and resolving that, but that's all through its own intended dialogue scenes, as opposed to the character just telling you overtly, I'm really upset with Varric. Do you know I'm really upset with Varric? That happens so well, and it's up to the Inquisitor to chase that out, as opposed to it being spelled out to you.
Yeah, and I like the mechanic, helping your companions through their shit, and then it's like Mass Effect 2. I really enjoy that mechanic, but please, you didn't have to make it so obvious.
Yeah, they're really hamming it home, like, this is what you have to do. You gotta do it. It's why I think Act 2 is the worst act, because it's nothing but therapy sessions. It's just
Companion's Quest and that one Elganon quest where you go reveal the dragon. That's really, besides, I think it's an Inquisitor encounter, I think, but it really is. You've got 2 main missions, and then it is just companions. And the thing is, Act 2 of Inquisition, for me, is where it's at. You know, Act 1's really good in Inquisition, but Act 2 is right. We've got Skyhold now. We've got the companions. We're now going to the Elysian Ball. We're going to meet the Grey Wardens. That's where the substance is at. And then you're going out into the other worlds and you're doing the bulk of the content. Whereas Act 2 in the Veilguard is like, okay, I'm just talking to my companions, helping them out.
Well,
and that's where it's like, okay.
I enjoyed talking to my companions a lot, actually. I like that there is, after every quest, but that's just me personally. I like that after every quest that I did in the world, as soon as I came back, there was more dialogue with my companions. I enjoyed that a lot. I like the amount of content that we got. It's just not, I don't want to say shallow, but in terms of like the content for the companions, it's a very wide pool and there's a lot of it, but it's not deep enough.
It's not.
I wish they didn't like each other, the companions.
Well,
No,
more
we were
ambiguity.
really missing some conflict. Yeah,
More
but there are fights in the lighthouse, but it's literally solved with Rook telling them, "Please get along."
It's like Tash was gonna call Emmerich a effer, but it's like but you compare that to again Cassandra and flipping Varric, or Vivienne calling Cole a demon.
Fenris and Anders.
Yeah.
Alistair and Morgan.
Yes.
You can solve every problem that you're like. There are small problems that you can make. It's of like Lucanus, and like Davor doesn't trust Lucanus, and Tosh thinks Emmerich is creepy.
Yeah.
And you can solve both these issues by being like a couples counselor, and it doesn't. It feels weird the way that you handle it. Like it doesn't feel like critiquing this game is difficult. Obviously, like elephant in the room. There's been a lot of hate around this game for stupid reasons, very stupid reasons.
Yeah.
So when you try to come at like a genuinely critique it, you don't want to parrot what these like grifter type people are saying.
No.
Because you just end up in a like depressing spiraling rabbit hole. But there are genuine things to be critical of this game about.
Yeah.
And I feel like the dialogue and the conversations and the writing don't really feel like a fantasy game.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And
they don't.
and like I feel like talking to these characters, I could run into them on the street because they are written in a very like real world modern day type like writing. And that writing's fine, but not for Dragon Age, in my opinion. And
not when you go from Morrigan, tis well, tis.
Yeah. All this like Shakespearean middle English type stuff.
Yeah.
And then you go to like one of the new characters, it's vastly different, and it really just kind of takes you out of the experience. And like this game, the biggest crime this game did was coming out after Baldur's Gate 3.
That's it. That's the big point that I want to make in this is if this game came out 2 years ago, wouldn't have as much criticism.
No.
But because it came out post BG3, everybody is comparing it to that, and the dialogue the only scenes in this game. I mean, I was emotional throughout this game, but it was more the story, the closure that we got with Solas, the reveals, the lore bits. Like, oh shit, this is actually happening. We've talked about this for so long, but I don't think there's a character besides Solas and the closure that we got, and I really liked the Mathal input in there. I didn't love the Mathal input because of what it's done to her character, but I like that the redemption wasn't just Llewellyn. I'm glad that Llewellyn didn't just save Solas. I like that he was bound to something, and that's why. But the thing is, what I'm saying is, with Baldur's Gate 3, with Shadowheart's narrative, that made me tear up. And there were parts of this game where I was in tears of the closure and the conclusions. No character had made me feel like that, barring Emmerich when he talked about his fear of death, because I can relate to that. But there wasn't that consistent emotional resonance I had with quite a few. It was just, they're being funny. And I think that's because it's so high, so positive, so good energy.
Which is weird for an end of the world scenario.
It's weird, but also it doesn't, because you're always that constant tone, it doesn't allow me to feel the other tones. When you are just that one thing, I don't feel the levity of the other grounded notions or other emotions. When Inquisition, when you feel the highs, you feel the highs. When you feel the lows, you feel the lows. Like when Varric misses Hawk because you chose leave Hawk in the Fade. That is that feels emotionally resonant because it allows for the tone of that game to fluctuate, and this is going to be an emotional moment because of it. But the Veilguard is every moment is high, positive, optimistic. I don't really care. It's so happy, happy, happy. You can't feel the lows. You feel the white hat glow, but everybody's just talking about their own problems. You can't actually feel the mistakes of the mission. You can't actually talk about it. And there are so many like this mission. It technically, from a plot point, should be the darkest entry in the series. It's invading. Ferelden is frigged. Forget what we experienced in Origins. That is tenfold. We're still just goofing around, and there isn't that emotional resonance to pay it off.
Yeah.
Nor the conversations about it. Harding should be worried about Orzammar, about the fact that it's all blighted, but instead she's talking about camping on a date with Emmerich. But
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings on this because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the Weissat mission, and I did really like that our plan failed.
Yeah, me too.
As
Which
opposed
is
to Corypheus, where
Yeah.
we had Haven, but then Corypheus wasn't very intimidating afterwards.
yeah.
And there are several moments. The whole Fate prison is one of my favorite sequences in the entire game.
That did have me
and-
bawling it too. Yeah.
Yeah. mhm.
And I feel like a lot of that is because Rook is so positive. And on the
Yeah.
one hand, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because they're like the leader of the team. They have to stay strong in front of their team. Their team is coping.
I hate the
Yeah.
word team. I'm gonna be real. I hate the word team. Just say party.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, not like it's not your fault. Not your fault, Lisa. Not your fault.
No, I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
I know. Like that. I feel like that also is like, you know, big indicator.
It's another instance. It sounds very modern, I guess.
Mhm.
Team.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the leader, and they need to stay strong in front of their
Yeah.
companions. So I get why Rook is so positive all the time, but I wish there were just a few more moments where Rook got to express themselves. How do they feel about Weishaupt?
Yeah.
How do they feel about
Yeah.
this? About the fact that they freed the gods. It's their fault. The fact that they're not able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
reflect on that more.
Mhm.
It would have been such a perfect thing to use in the Fate prison. Because
Shepherd
they
in
stopped
Mass Effect 3.
Solus. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the tone kind of shifts more after the Fate prison and Act 3. There is so little time, and I don't know. I feel like if that was explored, it's the same with there out of nowhere there's a new dagger.
Oh
the
my
fake
god.
one.
Yeah.
Apparently, Rook was stuck in a Fate prison for weeks. I thought it was days when I played it, but how do my companions find me? Why did they make the fake dagger? How did they do it? How did they find Rook? How did they get them out? All of these, there's so many questions surrounding that.
Rook, we got the pre-order bonus here.
Yeah.
Or it was the collector's edition.
Belara's romance reveals that Rook was stuck in a Fate prison for weeks.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
crazy. You could have fooled
Yeah.
me. I thought it wasn't that long.
Really?
No, I thought it was days when I played it, but no, it was weeks.
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
she says you were gone for days, weeks even, and we didn't know if you're ever coming back. She says something like that.
Oh
And like
shit.
there's during the Lucanus romance, he also says something along the lines of, "Oh, I thought I'd lost you," but
Yeah,
he doesn't
yeah.
say how long Rook was actually
Well,
gone.
Nev didn't say shit.
Yeah, so, but my whole point was the tone kind of shifts after the Fate prison,
Yeah.
and Rook, at least the Rook that I played, did sound a little more emotional afterwards. So that was nice, but I wish there was more of that throughout
That's
the
the thing.
entire game.
That's the thing. And the thing is, the final sequence is, in my opinion, some of the best stuff BioWare has ever done. So
It's
bloody
so
good.
good.
The choices
Yeah.
and the variables, the fact that if you don't do a bunch of the companion quest lines, you will have them as villains in that sequence, like the big green thing from
Yeah,
Emmerich.
that's
Love
really
that.
yeah,
The
that's really
attention
cool.
to detail is brilliant. It's just that tone that we have in that ending scene should have been throughout the entire game. I don't mind the light-hearted stuff. It's just that emotional resonance, and I think the tone also goes with that directional dialogue. And they're my biggest pet peeves. Is just the tone is too happy campy, and because of that, that there is no sense of this is the end of the world. Whereas you look at games like Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition, and there was a lot more levity, more grounded nature to it. But like Shepard going to bed every time, and we have this theory of it being the indoctrination thing, but he's chasing that kid that he thought he couldn't save at the very start. And it allows Shepard to be, while Shepard is a leader, is very much, stoic and offers, is to keep it up with the team. He has those moments of, they have those moments of doubt and of sadness, and it's like, well, that's the moments we need in these games, because while we are trying to be the leader and controlling this party, we need those moments of vulnerability because that's what make these characters human, personable. I play Dragon Age for the fields. I play it to really sink my teeth into playing this character and going on that emotional journey. And while I had an emotional journey as a player from a lore point of view, I didn't have it with Rook.
There is a moment of that with Rook and Varric at the very start of the game. There's just not enough. There's the few moments that you get to talk to Varric.
Parentheses, Varric.
Fake Varric. Rook has the option to express themselves a little bit, like they can be sorry about what happened during the prologue, where they just, I don't remember what else they can say, but I just wish there was more of that.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the biggest the differential, like I said, we always bring up Mass Effect 3 because this game feels a lot like it's trying to have a Mass Effect 3 in terms of the end of the world type situation.
Yeah, and the war assets as well.
And the war assets, huge thing. In Mass Effect 3, you cannot escape the effects of the Reaper invasion. Yeah. Everywhere you go, you see what happens. Yeah. And like you go back to the Citadel, it's full of refugees. But in Veilguard, you just go to your little private home and you're away from the world. You're disconnected. Nothing can hurt you, and you don't actively see the effects of this supposed end of the world unless you go out of your way to these different locations, like the Blighted Town and stuff like that. But like even in like Dogtown, if you do save it, you don't really get the sense that everything's gone to shit, Yeah. And then like it really hams home when like you're back at the lighthouse and everyone's talking about going on picnics and having tea.
Yeah.
When thousands are dying, like the Inquisitor is having.
You're getting a message from the Inquisitor saying Denerim's been overrun, where it's all gone to shit, and they're all going to Redcliffe, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and hunt with Davrin, and we're gonna have a picnic.
We'll have a picnic. We're gonna have some Asan training, bonding montage, and then we're gonna all sit down and talk about our aspirations in life. I'm like, oh, that's great, guys. I'm glad you're having a good time.
It's a bit tonally death, though. It's like in Mass Effect when you have Liara dealing with a lot of things, and she's upset about her homeworld, and that ties into her quest line. And a meeting is at her parent. I can't remember. And I'm not just saying I want a game of pure sadness, but when it's the end of the world, the stakes are high. I want some of that emotional resonance. Again, that's why I like Inquisition. It was grounded, and it meant that you were allowed to have those high moments and those low lows, and you feel them together, and that's what ultimately gets you through it, because you've gone through it together, and you are harder because of it, and you are more unified. Another critique I have is that tone and that forwarded dialogue, or that directional dialogue. There are so many quotes I can think of from Inquisition, Cole, Solas, and the Inquisitor fanatical belief is to blame. It's time we started believing in this one. And while Rook has some brilliant speech moments, there are no real, and maybe I need to play the game more, maybe this is just a critique from what I've played so far. For me, there are no standout moments. I am thinking about quotes from villains or heroes that have been like, shit, yeah, that was a proper moment. Like there are, even when we have the Dawn will come. Like when we have Cole talking about Solas and his purpose, or like the entire sequence of Trespasser and Llewellyn. I would have had you trust me. What would you have had me say? I was the great adversary of your people's mythology. Nothing like that really hit in the Veilguard, and those are things that, again, I played Dragon Age and BioWare for. Those hard-hitting dialogue moments, and I genuinely don't think we had really one that I can think of that hit me really hard. Let me know if there were.
Yeah, I definitely had a few, and most of these are related to Varric and Morrigan. Yeah. There's one line where Morrigan talks about Flemeth, and that one of the things Flemeth regrets is realizing that she will never see her daughter again when she died.
Yeah, that was good, yeah.
That really got me.
Yeah.
But there's, you guys both saved Dogtown, right?
Yes.
I'd say yes.
Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen what happens to Dogtown if you don't save it, but there was one moment for me where I was like, okay, shit. Because I saved Treviso, and Treviso's all fine. But then you visit Dogtown, and the hub that the Shadow Dragons stay at is completely destroyed. There's blood everywhere. Everything's broken. Everyone's gone, and there's bodies hanging in the streets. And it's a mess. And that was I think they did that really well, because that was really a moment where I was like, okay, this is really bad. So I think, I don't know what Treviso looks like blighted. I heard it's really bad.
It's
but...
Scala.
worse.
It's
worse.
bad. It's got a lot of
Okay.
pustules in the canals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Dockdown is pretty depressing when you don't save it, and I think that's one of the moments that was done really well. But so there's definitely a few moments for me, but I agree that some of the things are a little bit silly, and I don't want people to, because there's a lot of critique from people that say, oh, this game isn't dark, or it's not dark enough because it doesn't have the Origins darkness. And
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
bothered.
that's
When we say-
no.
That's just people
when
who
I-
played Origins. I get it, but I'm talking.
Yeah.
I'm even relating to Inquisition. I'm relating to Trespasser at the same time.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about the tone of the game, we're not talking about those kind of that kind of darkness. It's more the dialogue and
It's
the overall vibe that the characters give off.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
plenty of dark things in Veilguard. Like there's
Yeah.
this
Oh, there
one,
is.
the corpse of a woman in Hosberg,
Ugh,
where it's
yeah,
like her
yeah.
head is completely covered in blight, and it's. Or there's a quest in Minrathis where there's a father and his child is sick, and then he's looking for a cure, and then he makes a deal with the demon, and then he sacrifices for the demon in order to get the cure.
Yeah.
And then he realizes that he realizes what he's done, and then he
Yeah.
hangs himself, and you actually find his
Yeah.
and the bodies of all the people he sacrificed. Like that kind of shit is fucking dark. This game
Yeah.
definitely has this dark moment.
It
Yeah,
has
but it's like-
it's the dark material. It's just the tone of the Veilguard of Rook and
Yeah.
how our companions deal with that. We've just been in Hoosberg. It was a mess. Let's go for a picnic. And it's like
it's washed out. It's washed out by this very out of place dynamics between you and your companions. Like
Yeah.
you talked about Rook's like speeches he gives. Most of Rook's speeches that he gives talk about we can do this as long as we believe in each other, and we have gotten over all personal issues, and I believe in this team. We've got it what it takes, and like okay, all right. It's just it felt very campy.
Well,
And-
Shepard would have been like, "Get your ass in together. We're doing this. I don't care if it's on your loyalty or not." We would.
Shepard, you would have had the choice to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's again, I don't know what it was. Something happened again. Like Jack, you're more of a development person. I think something happened with the writing and the overall direction between, like Deventer Knights and this.
Yeah. Well, there are rumors of
It's-
EA interfering in some regard to that because it feels more EAE than it does Dragon Age.
It was corporate. It was corporate.
Yeah, and there is some. I've seen bits online of the data mine stuff and David Guerra talking about things. There's some inference of EA having their way regarding the tone. Again, I'm not saying anything, but I've seen bits on Twitter and Blue Sky about that.
I think with everything that's come out, the things that are in the art book, the things that have been data mined, I think developers had a story and everything. They had everything in place and then had to be made for whatever reason. And they had to cut out so much. The story kind of didn't make sense as it was. So they had to fill in the blanks, so to speak. And this is what we got. I feel like they had a lot more planned.
It's like Frankensteining all the work they've had over the past 10 years of the ideas of Joplin, this multiplayer pivot to a single player pivot to Morrison, and it's Frankenstein all together, and this is the result of that Frankenstein, which I do think overall, obviously, I love it. It's a great game. And now we're just seeing the shapes it could have taken and the result of all of that.
I think the developers did the best they could with the tools that they had. But for example, there was supposed to be more after the finale. From data mine files, we learned that there are supposed to be 2 more speeches, and one of them relates to possibly finding Davrin or Harding. He's trying to look for them, and there was supposed to be more after the game. There was supposed to be something wrong with the lighthouse at some point. It was there was supposed to be a blackout, and in the music files there is a track that is used during the finale, but it's called Hub Attack Montage.
Oh, wow.
Which is one of those, maybe it's nothing, but like it's called Hub Attack.
Yeah.
So
Probably the lighthouse where we got invaded or something.
So it said there's definitely more that they had planned, and I think we just needed a few more hours of content with this game.
I feel like there's a bigger, like...
I feel like the
systemic
resources have been put into Picnics with Davrin could have gone somewhere else. Into cameos of other characters like Fenris, into more of the story content, into making the Solas memories main quest instead of side quest stuff, because that stuff should have been the bigger focus of the game, chasing after Solas, learning about Solas, as opposed to it feeling like Alec Ryder's memories in Mass Effect Andromeda, where you go in the world and you find them if you want to. That should have been where the main story should have been. And also understanding Gillinan and Elganan more, instead of it being in codices. Another critique is a lot of the story is in the codex entries when it should have been in the game. The Inquisition missives, I know you can't make that a game. I know codices are made towards the end of the game anyway, so maybe it is compensation for what the writers can do, knowing us lore fans are going to be looking into it and all that stuff. But there's a lot of the story in the codex entries as opposed to it being in the main game. And that's the only time that's been a complaint, because even in Inquisition, we still got to understand Corypheus a bit more than we do Elganan and Gillinan, if you aren't reading the codices and getting into every single lore fans do. If you're not doing that, though, it's like, right, well, what's the point? I don't really get them.
I think Solus should have been like Johnny Silverhand and been constantly around.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been fun. But, like, 'cause I think Solus is one of the few exceptions where I feel like he was written very, very well and feels like he belongs in Dragon Age. There are, like I said, most of these characters, I said, like, they're the dialogue that they say and the way they are written, it doesn't feel like this character would, belong in Dragon Age. And Solus is an exception. I feel like Solus is extremely well written. The only issue is that we barely get to see him. Like we talked to him like a handful of times over the course of our 60-hour game, and then he pulls the Uno reverse card on us, traps us in the prison, and then we go out and meet him, and he fucks off again to be a big wolf.
So, according to some of the concept art that was found and also data mined, there was supposed to be more to the Fate prison as well.
Yeah.
Because I like the Fate prison. It was a really cool bit.
It's really good. The fact that there was supposed to be more, great. But as it is, I love it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change much about it, honestly. But it's just so clear that there was the devs had planned more. There was supposed to be a lot more. It's just a shame that those got cut or didn't make it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's why there's not going to be any DLC for this game. I think the devs, having spent 10 years. I know development started in 2020 anyway, but a lot of the developers have been on this for a long time. I think they just honestly they kind of want to be done with it too. We see the controversy online. I understand a lot of that being shit and people whatever. But I feel like they've been on this project for so long. They're probably happy to have a break from it and now enter the slower stages of Mass Effect development. But at least, we've Frankensteined all of this together. We've got the game finally polished enough to what we not want it to be, but what we can make it to be as a most viable product, with EA having their way and the pivots they've had in that game. And again, like I said, I love this game. Happy with the result. The critiques I'm making do not overshadow my experience. It's just looking at it now, having played through it, on my third playthrough currently alongside my second playthrough. But looking at it now, more objectively and lowering my emotions of how much I freaked out about this game, I think that's a reason why the devs are moving on. While there could be DLCs about the Executors and whatever else, the Dwarfs, I think need more content in this game.
Speaking of the Executors, there was also supposed to be more Executor content in this game.
Stop it.
It's true.
I'm gonna be 100%. I think the whole "we were pulling the strings from behind the scenes the whole time" is so stupid.
I like it just because it gives us more, and it's not like they were. It's keeping the characters' agency, but it's also giving us a threat that's actually lurked before the Elven Gods itself, before the Blight itself. So I like the idea that it's going to be a threat greater than anything we've had before, but also is also different from the Elven Gods. I like that, because we did just get everything belongs to the elves, and it's all because of the elves, and it's all because of Solas. Whereas now it's like, okay, well, what about the Executors? And they're going to tie into that greater. So there's at least that. But then it might be like, oh, by the way, the Executors are forgotten ones, or they actually created the elves, or they are the elves. We don't know. It might be like the Leviathans in Mass Effect, where it's like, well, we created them. We don't know. But I do like it more than I don't like it.
I wish we got more. My big thing of why I don't like it is that we have had barely any knowledge of the Executors. I mean, that is their whole point. They have to stay hidden, so they did their job well. But when you're trying to in a narrative sense, when you're trying to foreshadow something like that, you need to add more itty bitty bits of things sprinkled about to where you could put the conspiracy together before it's straight up revealed.
Yeah.
The big in game, we have interacted with the executors twice. Once as a war table mission, and the other when Rook collects the disc.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, it's revealed that they were behind everything the whole time. And
Yeah.
I obviously, there was more about them into Winter Nights, but I feel like that reveal is it rings a bit hollow.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who they are, aside from the fact that, they like triangles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I don't like that trope in general. The
that's fair.
X faction or X person was secretly behind it the whole time, because it's very difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
You have to make it believable and not a complete sideline, like out of nowhere type reveal.
I get that.
So they have the chance to make it work. They could make it work. Is entirely possible.
I honestly think it's an excuse to have another villain in another part of Thedas, whether that be current Thedas or another continent, and go, right, we're gonna be able to reboot Dragon Age in a different direction, with some connections to the previous games, with the executors being behind it all along, but in another continent. So I think that's what they're gonna go for.
That would be crazy, and that would be not the best idea.
Not the best idea. No.
I think what I want them to go, I don't know if this is the best necessarily, but what I'd like them to go for is the South is fucking chaos. It's fucking destroyed. So there, obviously we need to rebuild that. And then this force from outside of Thedas invades us, and then we have to protect our country and our home, that force. I think they could do something like that.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
That's
the thing, that they're ready to arrive now and reveal themselves. So it's like now.
It seems like they're showing up here.
That might not mean like a week after Rook, but it's like it sounds like it's going to be pretty close towards Rook's journey. And I feel like Rook, like the Inquisitor, like Hawk, introducing the threat, talking to the new hero about it. I think Rook might facilitate that, but that does be seen. What's going to happen in regards to the state of the world currently.
It's funny because maybe it's because I played this game on release, because I wasn't around for Inquisition, because I hadn't played the games yet. But this is the very first time I'm actually okay if we play as Rook again. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, me too.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
And it's the same if we, apart from Trespasser and Inquisition, and maybe Legacy for Dragon Age 2, I feel like this is the Dragon Age game that actually needs to see, and I feel really bad saying that.
It needs to be expanded upon more, especially with like
this game?
back at the start, I said that this could have used a second game.
Yeah.
So
especially with the lackluster end slides.
Yeah.
When I finished the game and the credits started rolling, I was like, "Is this it? That's it? Really?" I was just so surprised, and I with Inquisition it was really similar, but we have Trespasser,
and it gets even more slides as well, and proper conclusions.
I feel like I'm pretty satisfied with the slides that are about the general factions in the world. What about my companions? Like, we don't get to talk to them anymore. I don't know what's next for my Rook. I don't know what's next for companions.
No.
And that just felt really weird. And I feel like a lot of if we get a Citadel DLC or a Trespasser DLC for Veilguard, I feel like that could fix or address a lot of the issues that we have with.
I agree.
Which is why I'm very disappointed we're probably not getting a DLC. I get it. The devs want to move on. I completely understand it.
Still,
but I feel like out of every Dragon Age game, this is the one that actually needs it most.
Absolutely.
The thing is, I wonder if maybe when EA reveal their earnings call, which I think will be February next year, when we see how much this game has sold, i.e. if it's met EA's expectations, maybe if it's exceeded them, they might be like, right, go for it. But it depends on how much it's sold, and it looks like it's doing all right. But we need to know, given its 10-year development, what EA's expectations are of this game, and if they can marry up to that. If it's done well, EA might be like, right, you have to make a DLC. It sold really well. It just depends on the expectations, because it sounds like the team's already going to Mass Effect, but we don't know.
Yeah. And I think it really depends on EA too, and of course
really
there's
does.
the voice actor strikes as well, which makes things a lot more difficult because they can't record. But I just think it doesn't even have to be a DLC. Like, even if they don't want to paywall content, they could just do a free update. I mean, look at Baldur's Gate 3, but hey ho, that's different. I know I don't want to compare the two because the circumstances are very different.
But it's really hard not to.
It's really hard not to. Yeah, but. I just, as I was, my point was that it's up to EA.
It feels like this game needs DLC, and I get that. But the Veilguard will remain vigilant as like a MCU kind of like. That's what it feels like, though. It's like, okay, right? It's like the end of Guardians 3. You will see Peter again in the future. It's like
that's kind of that might be something that was left over from the previous version of the game or whatever, all the things that were cut, because it just feels so weird seeing the Veilguard remains vigilant and then knowing there's not going to be a DLC, and then the next game is probably going to have a new protagonist because every Dragon Age game does. I'm so just confused. Why?
And the conspiracy board as well alludes to a new hero too, so it's like, right, well, why are they going to remain vigilant? And is it just like they're going to have a small part in the next game, like the Inquisition has a small part? Okay, but then that's too big of a tease, in my opinion.
But I feel like that's not enough, because
it's not.
Like it'll be fun to see Rook again, but I feel like for all the development that we're missing for the character arcs, I feel like that's and the closure as well. I feel like that's not enough.
I agree.
Right. Also, for renaming the entire game around the Veilguard, they really only say the word Veilguard one time at the very end of the game.
At the end. There's no codices of it. Obviously, it was literally going to be Dragon Age Dreadwolf until the very end. And I think the thing is, I would have liked a story, personally, more about Solas. Yeah, his main memories being main questline missions with a bit more budget behind them. Get rid of the resources behind Davrin's picnic scenes or going to the Alafan Forest to talk to Balara. Put the resources properly into full-on cinematics of main quest Solas memories, seeing Mafal's murder, the mural scenes actually being proper flashbacks to fully cinematic scenes of what happened, and them being main questline. Then getting to know Solas, getting more ambiguity of it, tying into more multifaceted endings of his character, rather than one massively really good one and two ones that end in the same result, with one fail-safe ending if you basically screwed everything up.
I think it's a travesty that Inquisition and the subsequent material that came out after Inquisition to Winter Nights, the comics, they were building up Solas to be this big antagonistic threat that was like ambiguous to how you're supposed to handle them, and then they just kind of threw him out the window, to say least, for Elganon and Gillenan. And I like Gillenane, but Elganon's boring. Not nearly as compelling.
I was expecting him to have a big pivotal moment where he loses his shit and goes crazy, and I was like, that's why we haven't seen much of his marketing. And that's probably because we didn't see him in the game that much.
Yeah, it was the same issues I had with Corypheus, that he was barely shown. But I feel like this game would have been great if it was, you are a ragtag group people who are very low key, undercover, who need to find what Solas is doing and stop him, and fighting his agents along the way. What happened to the agents of Finral?
Stop it. Yep. Stop it.
Solas' spot.
They were into Winter Nights as well. They were literally in a book that they released before the game.
Like, I know people are like, oh, Solas couldn't have commanded him because he was trapped in the prison. Oh, so they're all just going to disband instantly?
Same for the Dalish elves being retconned. They were joining Solas. Harrenhal, every year, the Dalish were meeting up to conspire about something regarding their history. And it was as if they were creating an army to join Solas. And the Veil Jumpers, oh, no, we disagree. So we don't like Solas. We don't like our gods anymore. And that could have been more compelling. But this entire army of Dalish elves that were working for Solas just...
Yeah, or the teeny tiny detail that the dagger is the lyrium idol. But it's,
how?
Like,
yes.
Into Winter Nights, it said that it retracted a ritual blade, but that, in my opinion, that was like a little bit of lyrium at the side that became a blade. Not like the actual idol became a blade.
It looks
also that heavily...
It does.
Also, it heavily implies the Solas can just cure the blight. Which
is also true. Yeah, how did he purify the lyrium? How did he do that?
Which he's just like, okay, all right, sorry, Hero Ferelden. You should have just been born an elf god.
The idol is the big pivot of You Can Tell the Story reboot that it seemed to happen in like 2019, 2020, because even the comic writers had to pivot their story of chasing after the Red Lyrium idol, because that story was going to be, they are going to get the idol, but Solas is going to steal it at the very end. And what happened was, they got the idol, but then it got stolen by Magister Denarius the Lesser, who then took it to Navarra. Solas watched over him, and then Tevinter Knights, the Dreadwolf took the idol back, and it revealed it to be a ritual blade, and then it went disappearing in towards Tevinter, towards Navara, and then somehow Solas got it, purified the magic, and then we get his. Clearly, the game was supposed to be Rook is going to find the idol, something is going to happen with the idol, and that may have been like the fate of the world teetering on a knife's edge. Maybe I don't know, but it seemed like the idol was at the epicenter of this game, and then it just became the blade.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the marketing for this game. And I get it, the game didn't start development until 2020, but still it's like the game, we were told so many things, and it's like, okay, it ended up being something completely different. And that is just, again, the Frankensteining of this. Regardless, I think we should end on a few positives we do have. And I do
we have been really...
The thing is, we're just speaking about critiques of this game, because overall we do like it. It's a great game.
Look,
we can talk about how much we gush over it. And
I'm only this critical because I fucking love this game,
That's
and I
it.
fucking love Dragon Age. That is why. I feel like, one more thing, if this wasn't a Dragon Age game, I would have said, great, fucking perfect.
Yeah,
Because this
we're
is
hardcore
Dragon
fans
Age,
as well.
Dragon Age and BioWare are always so good at making companions feel like actual people and exploring their character arcs, and just, they're all about the characters, all about that. And the romances as well. And before I forget, the thing I wanted to say about the romances is that in the previous games, all the romances had a mini arc that was specific to the romances. The romances in Veilguard, while good, I like them. They're very similar to all of them. All the romance scenes are pretty much the same scenes that everyone else gets, even if you befriend them. But if you romance them, they're a little bit longer, and there's a little bit extra dialogue, and they all end in the same final scene at Lighthouse, apart from Emmerich's, who is the only unique one in that it doesn't. I don't. I mean, I don't know if you mind if I spoil it. What happens?
I'd rather you didn't, because I do want to see it for myself, because I'm so excited to do that romance with Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Okay, well, he's really good. I've heard a lot of great things, and he's the only unique. Apart from that, they're all very similar, and I think that is why some people are not happy with the romances. And I think Lucanis especially, because I've seen people complain about the Lucanis one a lot.
You can spoil that one if you want, I don't mind.
I mean, I liked what they gave. What we have for the Lucanis romance is really sweet, but it's just, I don't mind that it's a slow burn, because it is a slow burn, but I love slow burns. But there's the almost kiss, right? Like at the almost lock-in point, the first like official flirt option, there's the almost kiss, and then between that and the final romance scene, there is very little. You don't get an extra kiss, you don't hold hands. He makes dessert for you, that's cute. But there's just not a lot of content there, and when I played through the romance, I was expecting Spite to play a much bigger role in that, because the almost kiss, the characters almost kiss, and then Lucanis says, I need to clear my head, and then he walks away, and I was so convinced that Spite was the reason he didn't want to commit to the romance. And towards the end of the game, during the finale, he did say that he was afraid to want Rook, but he doesn't really elaborate. He doesn't really explain why. And I thought Spite was going to be the reason, but it's just not explored further.
Oh, okay.
And that's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, the other romances are just, they're all nice, they're all good, but it would have been nice if there was more.
You're not thinking about romancing that character again, really. You're not like vying for it. Like when you play Inquisition, Lisa, who are you going to go back and romance?
Solas.
but you know what I mean? And I'm vying for that, because I love that Josephine romance, because it's sweet, sensual, and you fight for her love, and it's it's happy campy like Veilguard, but also
you literally fight a guy in the Josephine romance.
You fight a man. It's so great.
It's sick. And then you've got this cute atmosphere, and then while I love Nev as a character, I can see like there's dissonance between romancing her and talking to her. There isn't much that you get besides the romance scene itself, which was fine, but I
just wanted them to be more unique. That's basically
that's
it.
very, very fair critique. And you can't even go up to them and kiss them. You could do an Inquisition. Eating cookies of Sarah on the roof. Like what?
Yeah.
Besides Solas, of course. I don't know if you could go back. Could you go back to Solas and kiss him?
No, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. The entire Solas romance is unique. It's a unique experience. And like even in Origins, the romances are quite similar. But like if you romance Alistair, there's the whole issue of, all right, I'm gonna become king. So what do we do? Because you're an elf, I can't marry you. What does this mean for our relationship? You know, they all come with their own mini arc.
See, as for Harding, there was something there, but it just gets brought up once and never again, and that's
Oh.
the lyrium poisoning.
That is exactly
what
what I
happens?
mean.
So basically, you can flirt with her a lot, and it's really cute. Like, there's this one really cute moment where like you flirt with Harding, and she's like, "Rook, is something happening between us?" I'm like, "Ew," kicking my feet, all giddy, like, and you like put your hand on hers, and then you get like a little nauseous, and you're like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta go." And then later, after you do like a personal quest of hers, she's so elated, she's like, "Oh my god, I could kiss you. I'm going to kiss you," and then she kisses you, and then you pass out because she gives you lyrium poisoning.
Wow.
Because she's so infused with it, and you're like, "Oh, we can't touch each other. We can't be like intimate like that." And then it's just never brought up again. They're like, "Oh, we found a way to get over it. Don't worry."
Oh, really?
Here's our,
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I mean. There is a very good setup for each of these characters with their own little story, and it's just not explored further, and that's what bothers me so much. So I feel like if this was not a Dragon Age game, I'd be like, yeah, sure, great, whatever.
But because
since
it is
this
Dragon
Age,
Mm.
hurts more, you know?
And I know we hit the comparison, but I'm comparing to Shadowheart, Lizelle, characters that I've recently romanced in a game that's inspired by BioWare themselves, and I'm like, you know, that Shadowheart romance left me in tears. The Lizelle one is frisky, and I love it for that. And then Karlach over that, you know, I'm thinking about these romance stories behind them, the beat behind them, the reasons why, and I'm like, you know, the Shadowheart one left me really, you know, just emotionally resonant with the character, really, really felt tied to her when you get to the romance scene itself. And I'm like with Veilguard, you know, like romance and Nev at the point where the world's going to end, but there wasn't deep connection besides her telling me, and I love her, but besides her telling me how much she loves being a private investigator and that she is indeed a private investigator.
Hey, did you know that I'm a private investigator?
And it's the same with Turlum. I'm sick of hearing the word Turlum. Oh, Asan's hungry, by the way. Asan's hungry. By the way,
Yeah.
Asan's hungry.
Yeah.
Should
But
we?
what about you, Davrin? What about your history? And we get it in party banter, but that shouldn't be the excuse. That should still be in the substance of the game. Him talking about Dalish and being a monster hunter and the things that make his character, how he feels about the elven gods and things like that. And we get it in small scenes, but other than that, it's talking about Turlum.
I think the big part of the reason we feel this way is because we can't talk to our companions outside of those cutscenes.
Yeah.
We can't just go to them and ask them a bunch of questions.
Yeah, we can't learn more detail like we could in Inquisition, where we'd have like
They investigate.
all these like dialogue options, like, "Oh, what was your life like growing up? Oh, what was the blah blah."
Exactly.
And we don't get that. It feels like a lot of these characters, these companions, have been boiled down to one or two personality traits.
Yeah.
And like I was bringing it back up, like, you know, oh, Cassandra stumbling across, like, or you stumbled across Cassandra reading the smut book. I feel like if Cassandra was in Veilguard, I don't think she'd have that nuance to her character.
She'd just be the left or the divine or the left, the right hand of I'm the right hand of the divine, by the way. Don't forget I'm the right hand of
And it's upsetting because I think these characters are great. They have the potential to be so fantastic, and I love, like, I like bringing them along. A lot of them have a lot of good banter with each other. But then, like, it doesn't really get much deeper than that when you know that there could be.
Exactly.
It's true.
And that's why it's such. And like that's combined with the lackluster ending and the lack of closure is just that. Those are my two main critiques because, the main story I wouldn't change much, especially the entirety of Act 3 is like
It's pretty
fucking
good. It's pretty good.
It's so good.
I love it.
It's
really
so
good. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are actual stakes, and I love that. The game constantly had me on edge, like in a good way. I was so fucking nervous the whole time playing Act 3 because I was afraid I'd fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's
what you want.
It's so good.
The sense of stake, because you care about these characters, you care about this story, and that's what you got in Mass Effect 2. It's like, shit, you know, we started as...
Did y'all lose anyone in the final bit?
No.
No, I didn't. I get everything perfectly.
Did we all lose
apart from
Harding as well? Yeah, we all lost
I
Harding.
Okay, all right. We're gonna go on a tangent here. I gotta talk about something real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm gonna talk about, Jack.
Do I?
So we were in Jack and I are in like another like group chat with some friends, and I was talking to them as I was doing Act 3, and I'm like, oh man, guys, I'm really just struggling to choose. Who should I choose to lead the second team to be the distraction, Harding or Davrin? Keep in mind, I don't know what's coming. And Jack, who's already beaten the game, knowing I did Harding romance, was like, oh, you should choose Harding because she's your romance. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea, Jack. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then we cut to like you know, a couple hours later, and then Harding gets fucking stabbed in the gut by Gillenane tentacles and fucking dies. And I'm like, Jack did this to me, knowing full well what was coming. He told me to put Harding in that position, and karma will get you one day.
Well,
Karma will.
you're gonna have to beat me at the next Mass Effect first, and then ruin it for me.
Ah,
Yeah,
shit,
maybe
that's
the next
true.
Mass.
Yeah.
Next at Mass Effect 5, I'll find a way to kill Liara or something.
No.
So, Jack, who did you romance in the next Mass
yeah,
Effect,
yeah.
huh? Oh, this character. Oh, you should really take her on that mission.
Yeah,
this is fine.
yeah. You should make
Don't
her
worry
go on this
about it.
really risky project. It'll go
Yeah.
well for her.
Nothing will go wrong. No
Nothing
worry
will go
about
wrong. I'll get my licks back. Don't worry.
it. Trust me. I finished the game. I know.
Yeah. You can trust me, Jack.
You'll be fine. Yeah, do that.
But yeah, that was really funny though. It was really funny.
I think generally though, Davrin should be that choice. I know we lose Hassan, but Davrin was
I
ready to
would
sacrifice
agree.
himself in Act 1. Davrin's a Grey
I
Warden.
agree.
He's got more life ahead. He's got less life ahead of him than Harding. Harding's at the beginning of her journey. She's just discovered what it means to become a Titan, to be from a Titan. She can carry that legacy on. But you know, Davrin is
Baby Griffin.
Yeah, but he's got. There's still 12 more.
There's 12 other Griffins. Yeah, that's plenty.
There's only one Harding.
There's only one Harding.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what I'm going to make my canon choice. It's hard.
I don't know. I'm torn because Davrin is my bestie.
Yeah.
Like Davrin and Nev were my Rook's besties.
Oh hell yeah.
And I like Harding a lot.
Davrin and Harding were my Rook's besties.
Yeah. Oh my god, that makes me.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad because I like Davrin. I like Davrin and Lucanus a lot, and Harding.
same.
Yeah, it was. Oh man.
I love Nev and Emmerich in my first player for day. They were my bestie.
Emmerich really grew on me. Also, Ballara grew on me. I thought I wasn't going to like Ballara a lot because of how hyper and quirky she was, but she really grows on you as being like a genuine person. Yeah, she's like I really like her. She's great.
Yeah. I think in general I really love this game. I don't know if I want to give it a rating yet. I'd say maybe as a Dragon Age fan, for my first playthrough, 9 out of 10 because of the lore drops, screaming at my telly, and rarely doing that on a game. Previously would have been Baldur's Gate 3, but in terms of having guessed so much about this lore, tenfold about it, and it being spot on, and it being like seeing a forgotten one, to then defeating the formless one, to seeing characters like Valia or Volta or Essaya, deep lore cuts. Yeah, sort of. To like seeing Isabella again, Morrigan, and the parts of Solas's story that parts of it are like, all right, I get where this is going. Mathal's taken a deep from what I thought was going in her narrative of being a reckoning that will shake the very heavens, but no, apparently she died in Inquisition, and this is the remnants of her storyline and how that indicated for Solas. For overall, from that point of view, loved every second of it and really, really enjoyed playing it on easy difficulty, not caring about the combat. But now I'm playing it a second playthrough, and I'm looking at it as a game a bit more objectively, and I'm seeing the more dialogue, being it directional, and having a harder time playing it as a second playthrough because there's less choice, less nuance, but also at the same time the good stuff gets in like 20 hours in. For the most part, when you're playing it from the start, it very much is a similar experience. The choice comes later on. I would say it's probably more like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 from a second point of view, and also the gamification of it, of the blight boils or the crystals or the puzzles getting repetitive, and then the combat towards the end feeling like you are just dwindling down enemies. I don't really like to give ratings, but I would say generally for me 7 out of 8, first playthrough 9. As a hardcore fan though, and as somebody who is in the minority of who likes to read codex entries, have long conversations with characters, who doesn't care about combat. Like, that's the thing for me. It's very different from somebody who's more casual, who's come off the back of Baldur's Gate 3 or Inquisition with not knowing much, or they're trying out the latest RPG game, whatever. So I understand that diversification of it. I am very different in that regard, but I do love this game, and I will be talking about it for a long time to come, and I'm enjoying playing as a rogue the most. I think I've found
oh yeah,
really love that.
Have you discovered the helicopter meta?
No.
Where you just so this is a tire tangent. What specialization are you doing?
I'm doing veil jumper, but I haven't started it.
Okay, well, as a duelist, what I would just do. Duelish, you build up a lot of adrenaline and you can get necrotic weapons.
Yeah.
If you like parry and stuff, I would just parry and then spam the heavy attack with your dual blades, and you do so much damage. It's actually
hell
insane.
yeah.
It's crazy. I think playing the rogue was super fun. Anyway, back to what you're saying.
No, now anybody else have any?
Again, I feel like I've been very critical of this game, especially like as my honeymoon phase with this game has ended. I've noticed more problems that I have with it, especially if you either fairly or unfairly compare it to other major fantasy games that are currently out right now.
Yeah.
Despite that, I still enjoyed this game. I liked my time with it. It was nice to be back in this world, even if I think the world could have been executed better. Because at the end of the day, it's still Dragon Age. I like Dragon Age. I like seeing these characters. I am very easily susceptible to like big hype moments. The attack on Weishaupt, I think, was one of the pinnacles of this game, along with the assault on Minrathous in the final act was also very good. Very fun missions that had like major choice and consequences, which is what you come to these games for, and I feel like those were done very well. I liked the gameplay of it, extremely solid. The combat was the most fun. Even if you prefer the old tactical style of Dragon Age, that's fine. I personally really like this action style. It's what suits me better. It could have been fleshed out a little bit more, maybe, but I still enjoyed it. It was a fun combat, like what's the word I'm looking for? A cycle. It's a fun combat cycle. Get into the combats, especially like playing as Rogue, dashing around and just tearing through enemies like a chainsaw is really fun. I like a lot of I like the companions and characters more than I thought I would. They are enjoyable. There could be a lot more there, and I hope that they get expanded upon in any potential future thing that happens in this series. And if I did have to give it a rating, it would definitely be 7 out of 10. I enjoyed my time with this game. I will play it again. Not now. I'll let it simmer for a bit. I will probably come back to it sometime in the new year. Maybe try some different options. Maybe I won't punch the first warden this time, but if he opens his mouth, that's going to be really difficult. I'm both excited but also concerned about the future of Dragon Age as a whole. I want more. I want more Dragon Age. I love this franchise. I hope that the things that we talked that we were critical of, I hope they improve. I hope that, the writing is more consistent. I hope that the tone matches, is consistent with whatever narrative they're trying to talk about. I hope that our choices will matter more, because that was one thing we didn't talk about, was the 3 choices that aren't really 3 choices if you think about it.
It might sound delusional, but I do think whatever comes next, because it's not going to hopefully have a 10-year development cycle based on what EA mandates at the time, i.e. every game must be live service, every game must be multiplayer. EA know that lesson now. I do hope that isn't going to affect the next Dragon Age in terms of it's not going to be a Frankenstein thing based on mistakes. That's at least what I think.
We are, I think, extremely lucky that we, 1, even got this game, and 2, got it in a solid state that it's in.
Polished.
Because
so
even the people who are very negative about this game, you'll see on all their YouTube reviews, they're like, I hate this, this, and this. One thing no one can deny is that this game is extremely well polished, extremely well put together, and in today's climate for games that come out half finished and have to be fixed with like 50 different post-launch updates, it's extremely impressive that they were able to pull this off, especially with the development hell that they had been through. You have to give it to the team that made this game, that they did a fantastic job making a functional, fully realized video game. The contents of the game, you may not like it. You may, as a Dragon Age fan, you may love it, you may hate it, but it's well put together, and that is like something you have to give them praise for.
Absolutely.
I hope they can continue this momentum when it comes to making whatever comes next, be it Mass Effect 5 or Veilguard DLC. I hope they can continue that momentum forward to making another solidly well-made game. I just hope that now they can do that, they can improve upon the writing. And if they can do that, I will be coming back to play whatever comes next. Mass Effect 5, Dragon Age, Veilguard DLC, Dragon Age 5, 2030. Yeah, I'm optimistic, a little nervous, but I'm looking forward to it nonetheless for the next Dragon Age game and the next BioWare game in general.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I feel like as a Dragon Age game, it's done a lot of things better than Inquisition, but there's also a few things that Inquisition still did better, so I am having a hard time ranking it. I also don't really like giving games a ranking.
Nope, get that completely.
So-
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, understandable. Hmm.
Yeah, so as of right now,
Give it
I
5 nugs of 6 Brew Brothers.
nugs. That makes it even harder.
So sad we didn't get to see a Broodmother in this game.
No.
Oh god. Yeah, no, but I think in some areas it's better than Inquisition and it's above Inquisition for me, but there's a lot of areas I think Inquisition is still better. So if I had to rank the games in order of which one's my favorite, I'd say Inquisition is still my number 1, and then
Yeah,
it's
same.
Veilguard, and then it's Origins and Dragon Age 2. I like Dragon Age 2 a lot, it's just my least favorite of them, so.
Yeah.
I will hold out tiniest amount of hope that we do get either a DLC or an expansion or a content patch of some sorts that fills in the blanks that we're missing, or gives us some closure regarding the companions and what's next. And apart from that, like, I really had a great time with the game. I do want
Yeah.
to play it again, probably also next year, because I'm still working on some content
Yeah.
for the game right now. So I'm just mostly just going back through my current save, get footage and stuff. With everything in mind, the development hell, the years, the reboots. I think the developers did a fucking good job
Oh,
at
yeah.
this
Yeah.
game, and as Marshall said, it's really polished, and I think that's really important too.
It's a miracle it exists as well. And
It's-
honestly,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
what ultimately that's when I say it exceeded my expectations. It's functional, polished beyond surprise, and it's a really good game.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of criticisms from Inquisition that definitely addressed
They
with
did.
Veilguard,
They
like,
addressed the
character-
majority
yeah.
of them. And
Yeah.
we'll look at Inquisition in the same lens of this was cut. The Warden was going to be an Inquisition. Oh shit! It was going to be more reactive. It was going to be this. So we talk about his criticisms, but we're speaking about them from a place of love and admiration of BioWare, of things they can
For
do
sure.
better, and also things that other games have done better in terms of the BioWare's own IPs. But also just the current landscape we are in, the end of 2024, of living in a post-Baldur's Gate 3 world, which we knew
It's really
everybody-
hard.
It's
It is.
it's the best game of
Yeah.
the century, Baldur's Gate. But I mean,
At least the decade for me. It's
sorry, decade,
ex-
not century.
Decade.
Sorry, decade. I meant to say decade.
Century. You're pushing it. You're pushing it, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really.
So that's the world we live in, and we knew BioWare were gonna. And also, you've got games like Avowed, Fable coming out, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
I can't wait for Avowed. I'm
Yeah.
so excited for Avowed. It looks
the
so
landscape
fun.
right now for fantasy RPGs is insane, and some of the modern language in this game is what kind of ruins my escapism, and that is the reason I do play Dragon Age. Is
Go-
yes, for morality, ambiguity, bit of politicalness here, and a bit of this and that there, but ultimately escapism, and that's what pulled me out of it.
Going from Dragon Age Veilguard back into Metaphor Refantasio is like night and day.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy.
Appreciate Lisa and Marshall for joining me for a good old
Yeah.
time on the Barbie. Next time we're gonna aim to do one
Alright.
before the new year. Hopefully we'll chat to you all before the new year. We're gonna try and manage our schedules to have another one and just honestly interrogate Lambo for all his opinions.
Yes.
We'll get him in the interrogator's chair
In the hot seat.
in the hot seat. Yeah, and we'll ask him all his because he did write a list of notes here. We mentioned a few of them, but we'll get him on the hot seat and we'll talk even further about other things. But of course, this podcast is going nowhere. We're going to be talking about all our thoughts on the Veilguard, the history, and the future of BioWare, and maybe even a bit of Mass Effect. We'll see where we go. But I really appreciate you all for listening to us this far. Lisa, have you got anything to plug on your YouTube channel? Anything up?
Yeah, I'm working on well, I don't really like calling it a review video, but it's like it's sort of a review video. It's just a video where I share my thoughts on the game,
Yeah.
spoiler free. And then
yeah.
after that, I've got because this one's pretty basic. It's
Yeah.
just my overall thoughts. And then the next one I've got planned is going into detail about basically everything we talked about in the podcast, but it's currently 17 pages.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Oh boy.
Hell
I
yeah.
don't know when that'll be out, but I'm working on it.
Looking forward to watching that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Hell yeah.
Release the content.
But we'll cut it there. Thank you all so much. We will see you in the next one and catch you all later on. But until then, goodbye.
Bye.